I'm going to ask you about the state of the Albanian nation by the end, but first I want to know your opinion about the political situation in Kosovo, as you say. I want your opinion about the Kurti government. I know if you know him, like he led the government for like just 2 months and then was overthrown, obviously democratically, by a vote in the assembly. But then he accused Mr. Grenell and the US as being behind a coup to overthrow him. What do you know about him, about his governance and the way he left?
Well, I know Kurti from back after the war. I went to Kosovo and we even had breakfast together. And don't forget, he suffered a lot. He was in the jails in Serbia, I believe. And so he has his attitude formed by those experiences. But I saw that he started a good government with Vjosa Osmani, and now we have, thank God, Fatah Bezlimi also in the parliament. And I think these are people who are educated, who are smart, and who are really good Albanians from the mind and the heart. And we have to hope that we have a new government soon in Kosovo, because right now I don't think this government is functioning as good as it can be, and I don't think it has the complete support of the Albanian people.
So you would like to see Mr. Kurti again in the government?
Well, I cannot say Mr. Kurti, but I can tell you that we need to have new people, and who's better than people like our good friend Fatah Bezlimi, not to run right now, to run the country, but this is what we need. We need Albanians to get educated like he did at Harvard. He's now got his doctorate. He's in the parliament. He understands America. He understands the history of the Albanian people. We need to get more Albanians educated in America and to convince them to go back and help to change the democracy in Kosovo, because it's not really acting as a full democratic state. We still have the parties having too much control over the economic resources and giving jobs to the people. We want real jobs there. We want a real economy, and that's going to have to come. That's not there yet.
Now you have this government which is led by Mr. Hoti from the Democratic League of Kosovo, who was elected and now is in the governing with Mr. Haradina. But the political landscape can change because of the work of the specialist court, as you are aware. There might be indictments against President Thaçi and PDK leader Mr. Veselj very soon.
Well, justice has to prevail, and that's not for me to judge, okay? There's no question that these are lingering things that have to be handled, and I hope that's going to be taken out of the way. You know, we worked very hard at one time to get Mr. Limaj and Mr. Haradina away from The Hague. Why do we do that? It's not because we were looking to help them as individuals. We didn't want Kosovo to be looked at as a terrorist state, and it would have been terrible if The Hague had, convicted someone like Ramush Haradinaj or anyone else. So this is another problem we have, because it doesn't look good for Kosovo when any Albanians are being brought to The Hague. But we cannot interfere with international justice. That's up to independent judges to take care of.
Otherwise, in our last interview, I know that you weren't very much happy on how Mr. Thaçi led politically Kosovo for many years.
Well, Mr. Thaçi really has never been a supporter of what I have done. He was supporting his party, raising money for his party, and he was then making the party strong instead of the nation. That's not the way I see Kosovo. To me, we have to start dealing with making Kosovo strong. And I think we need to change, and I've said this before in one of your interviews, we got to change the way elections happen. People should be voting for people, not for lists on a party. Now, that may sound strange to some Albanians, but that is not true democracy. True democracy is when you are voting for your representatives in Congress, like we do here, and not just a party list that's put together and then you don't know really whether or not they're supporting the nation the way they should. I think money has played too much of a role in Kosovo, and I think the parties have started that, and it's still not finished. And while it's important, I think, to have good, strong parties, it's not important for the parties to control the economics, to give out the jobs, because then you don't have the right approach to democracy. there should be support for the state. And that means that we should have an economy that is supported by all the people and all the parties, and hopefully people will apply for jobs that they deserve.
And that's why people are leaving Kosovo, the young people who don't see their future here.
Well, we know that, and that's really one of the big problems. We still don't have the ability to travel, throughout Western Europe the way other countries do, and we need more of the leaders in Kosovo to be lobbying for that. And we are going to lobby for that. Shirley and I will go to Washington as soon as we can. We already, before we took that trip to Switzerland last November, we went to Washington just to meet with the members of Congress on the right committees. And I was so happy to see how much they still supported the Albanian people. So we have a lot of love and support for the Albanian people in Congress. And don't forget, most of what I did was done through the Congress of the United States of America, the Senate and the House. It wasn't done through the presidency. And why is that important? Well, that's where the money comes from. No budget in America can be accomplished by any president unless they make the case to the Appropriations Committee of the Congress. And we have many friends now in all these committees, and we have to, as soon as this virus is over with, you'll see me traveling a lot more to Washington to make sure that we reestablish the real love that Congress has had for the Albanian people. That's where we got our power. That's where we got our, independence. In fact, it's amazing to me that we worked so hard with Clinton, but it took a Republican, George W. Bush, when I delivered a million Neshrimi signatures from Kosovo with the help of Fatah Bislimi and other young Albanians. And then finally, Bush recognized, I guess he was the first one to recognize the independence of Kosovo. Now we need Vučić to show that he's a good friend and a good neighbor to the Albanian people of Kosovo by recognizing that. And there cannot be any compromise on that. Albanians have paid too much blood, too much time, too much money for their freedom and their independence, especially in Kosovo. And there should be no doubt about that. And there should be no doubt that not one piece of Kosovo can be divided. If we start dividing one piece, that's going to now allow for other things to happen. We have to stand our ground. We have Kosovo. It has its borders. No changes to that. And let's get Serbia to wake up. If they want peace and stability in the region, and they want to be considered a friend so they get into the European Union, they must recognize Kosovo as an independent state. And they must take the word Kosovo out of the Serbian constitution.
And